U.S. President Joe Biden has finally called on Israel to accept a ceasefire. The ceasefire that he claims is their own, also urging Hamas to do the same, despite them already having accepted a ceasefire on May 6. In a publicly televised speech on Friday, the American president sent a message to the Israeli leadership and people, urging them to take the opportunity in front of them. What was interesting was his focus on encouraging Tel Aviv to adopt a ceasefire that they supposedly drafted, which caused confusion.
I've urged the leadership in Israel to stand behind this deal, despite whatever pressure comes. And to the people of Israel, let me say this. I ask you to take a step back and think what will happen if this moment is lost.
So, on May 6, Hamas accepted a ceasefire proposal, almost identical to the one that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had publicly lauded during his trip to West Asia shortly before. On the same day, the Israeli military responded by invading eastern Rafah and seizing the primary land crossing between Gaza and Egypt. This collapsed the course of the ceasefire negotiations. The reason for the sudden Israeli invasion was simply they had delayed it since January, when they originally threatened to invade and informed their people that the last remaining Hamas stronghold was in Rafah. However, the issue for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is the idea of winning the war in Gaza through invading Rafah has always been a lie. The original focus of his ground offensive in the besieged coastal enclave was northern Gaza, claiming that Hamas bases existed in major hospitals there. In order to convince the world of this, they used the US government to lie on their behalf and release CGI videos depicting a multi-layered Hamas headquarters tunnel complex under Al-Shifa Hospital. After invading Al-Shifa Hospital and exposing themselves as having fabricated evidence that it was a Hamas headquarters, they then shifted quickly to focus on Khan Yunis, which Israeli officials said was the real Hamas headquarters. In December, they invaded Khan Yunis. Lo and behold, they again failed to produce any evidence of uncovering a Hamas headquarters. Instead, the Israelis focused their ground offensive on the middle and northern areas of Gaza, claiming to have dismantled Palestinian resistance battalions in every area they entered. However, the Israelis not only failed to dismantle Hamas, but didn't even manage to eliminate one of the some dozen resistance groups operating in the besieged territory. Which brings us back to the current invasion of Rafah and Joe Biden's speech. Although there are elements within the Israeli leadership that seek to conclude a ceasefire deal, there is also a stronger contingent that includes Netanyahu, who wish to keep the war going. Rafah is a dead end, because after the invasion is complete, and Hamas inevitably still exists, they have no good options moving forward, which is why the US is evidently worried. So, what is next, beyond Rafah, are the two possible options of expanding the conflict with Lebanon and Lebanese Hezbollah, and launching a large-scale incursion into the West Bank. Both of these options are extremely dangerous and could set in action a course of events which lead to irreversible consequences for both Israel and the United States in the region. Despite this, and his calls for a ceasefire, Joe Biden still cannot even establish his ever-changing red line and stand up to the Israeli regime, and the American president's weakness could spell chaos for the entire region.